Hello, everyone. I'm Mystery.
And I am Bolton Mortimer the Authenticator, and we have the Duality of Man. They're trying it again because it worked so fantastically well the last time.
Yeah, it seems that with Trump now back in office, the way they're going to conduct lawfare is by getting federal judges to block things that really, when you think about it, they should have no power to block. Like, they should have no power to block his foreign policy with El Salvador. They should not have any power to block his stance on military recruitment and acceptance. And they should have no stance on U.S. aid and U.S. funding foreign aid, but they're overreaching, and so now it's going to become a battle again. Which and the
You
thing is
know,
that they're over. Hold on, I just
I'm
want to.
remi-
They are over. They are trying to overreach on all of the worst things. Things that like 90% of people agree on. They are fighting to keep the bad stuff happening, which is
and
insane.
yet, and yet, Trump is the one they call a fascist. But I'm reminded of Razorfist's old stench from the bench rant and all his "we should put limitations on the judicial system, goddammit" rants that accompanied it.
Oh, we did talk about this before, and um, I in a previous episode I proposed that there should be an impeachment process for citizens to impeach judges because, like, if the citizens feel that their cases are being ruled on by a judge that is unfair, the citizens should have power to remove that judge. But these are
Yeah,
federal judges that are doing this. So
I'm reminded of the "he has control of the Senate and the courts, he's too dangerous to be left alive" thing from Star Wars of all things. But yeah, when people can weaponize the law and they all like unilaterally agree that weaponizing the law is a good thing to do and a good precedent to set, the only way to go about it is either one, anarchy, which doesn't usually get anywhere, or two, someone somewhere needs to overhaul the courts. And the trouble is, you can't do that without all those Herdider fascist smears from at least looking like they're coming true. The good
yeah,
news
and
is, as ever, our enemies do not learn from any previous situation, and so they are trying something that has already manifestly failed once.
yes, and I would like to remind people that Joe Biden, when he was president, tried to block people from evicting residents during COVID, even though most people were ready to be done with the lockdowns. And the Supreme Court said that you're not allowed to do that. And then Joe Biden freaking just ignored the Supreme
Did
Court.
it
So why
anyway.
should
Yeah.
yeah, so why should a federal judge be able to block something that is fully within Trump's power to do and is a good thing that
And
answers
mostly
the question?
pertains to foreign policy rather than domestic shit, which means it shouldn't even be covered fully under the purview of American law, technically.
Yeah. So I have this video here from Tim Pool that covers a bit of this. So really watch this.
Yep. Commence the meanie beanie.
I'd say we were closer to civil war than ever before. If you watched the live show at noon, you'd understand even in greater detail. But there is a debate raging right now, particularly among those who are anti-establishment, some who supported Trump or this narrative, that Donald Trump's actions in deportations are wrong. Well, I'm here to argue that Donald Trump is in the right, and it's a challenge. It's a challenge. I can
Tim,
dismiss almost everything
Tim, I love
pertaining to
you,
the deep.
but the Civil War drum has been beaten so much it looks like an old rug at this point. You, you,
I mean,
you might you might want to just let it die, my friend.
I used to say the same thing, Dalton, but the way that the left has been acting a lot lately, like with the domestic terrorism attacks on freaking Teslas, like things haven't calmed down. They've in fact escalated, and it's only a matter of time until like these insane attacks get people killed. Like it's not just like Elon Musk. Like Tesla has like just regular employees that people work at, and they're
Yeah,
setting
people
like
who just randomly happen to own a Tesla or a Cybertruck are getting domestic violence or domestic terror essentially leveled at them, and
so like
it sucks. I just it, Tim Pool saying my civil war is the day must be ending in Y things. I'm not saying it's not happening. I'm just saying that any claim of civil war from Tim Pool in particular is a little bit like the boy who cried wolf at this point. Tim, just let the rhetoric die. It's not happening, my brother. Seriously.
Well, it's not a full blown civil war, but there's definitely a lot of civil conflict going on, like you mentioned with the Tesla attacks, and not just that, but did you hear there was some sort of attack at CIA headquarters in Langley today? I'm not entirely sure on the details, but there
Today?
was some sort of attack at this. Yes, like it happened today.
Okay, well, I didn't wake up until the afternoon, and I haven't really been looking at the news because I was reading an audiobook. But this is news to me.
Yeah, I haven't had much time to look into it in full detail. I was at work, and then I came home to do some schoolwork. But yeah, it looks like there was an attack on the CIA. The police, I believe, I don't know if they apprehended him or if they gunned him down. But yeah, that definitely happened.
The good news is, and I'm going to quote Nux here, they keep picking the 20 side of every 80-20 issue, and therefore every time they radicalize more and more further and double down, the more absurd and stupid they make themselves look. Like the guy who ranted and raved at Trump during his congressional address speech there.
Yeah, and I just saw a meme. It's like Elon Musk is trying to innovate electric vehicles and build rockets to send people to space and Mars, and they call him a fascist. But they have like extreme gay people in furry masks twerking in front of children on the middle of Main Street, and they call that progress.
And on the fascist rhetoric thing, I'm gonna use old Benny and Giovanni Gentile's definition here. Everything within the state, nothing outside the state, nothing against the state. And you are leveling this charge at the people who are trying to shrink the scope of the state using an external audit that is actively against the bloat of bureaucracy. It is literally hard. Like it is borderline impossible to get any more definitionally not fascist than the thing that they are calling fascist. Literally.
Yes, trying to cut the government spending your money
From
like
the
Trump.
outside moving in. The exact definitional opposite of the and lest we forget, in an effort to make people less tied to the state and less restricted by the state. So literally, definitionally, the categorical opposite of fascism, and yet derp logic, I suppose.
Yeah, but let's go back to the video so you can hear about these judges.
Deportation of these criminal gang members by simply saying wartime president. And, a lot of people are going to say, I don't like the sound of that. I don't care. Literally don't care. Over the past 5 or so years, this country has been in a state of active conflict. I'm not saying kinetic conflict. The lockdowns from COVID originated with Donald Trump, 2 weeks to slow the spread. Then we ended up with a wave of lockdowns across the country, mandated medications, mass riots to the likes of which we hadn't seen in decades.
Until early 2023.
Firebombing of government buildings.
Like, lest we forget, I know it seemed like one long continuous dirge, but the lockdowns that were supposed to be 2 weeks to flatten the spread or 2 months to flatten the spread lasted from March, literally the weekend before St. Patrick's Day of 2020, all the way through like January of 2023.
I'm pretty sure a lot of places were back to normal far before that.
But there was still the masking and the government was sort of soft keeping the regulations in place pretty much until then. So the best part of 2 to 2.5 years 2 weeks to flatten the spread. Began the weekend before St. Patrick's Day of 2020 and lasted well in the advance of 2022. So there.
All right. You gonna play again?
Mm-hmm.
Buildings firebombing of the White House and St. John's Church. Donald Trump loses an election. Call it whatever you want, but he lost. Joe Biden takes power. The lockdowns extend. It's been active conflict for some time. The Biden administration and its allies in various states sought to put the president in prison. Some people tried to kill him twice. One was a pro-Ukraine zealot. Now we are getting acts of terror across the country. And then comes Donald Trump's deportations. And you say to me, how dare Trump? Okay. There's no argument to be made. Philosophically, morally, we're done. Are you a fool? Are you blind, or are you are you being fooled? Trump administration has noon deadline. They say this is.
I'm going to go with D. All of the above. At the same time.
Yeah, that's probably the most accurate. I mean, to be honest, because like these people, like, even if you put the evidence right in front of their eyes and explain the logic to them about why they are wrong, they still won't admit that they're wrong.
Because most special pleading, you are immoral by definition, I am correct by definition, and therefore no reasonable conversation can be had, apparently. I have run into so many people like this. It is fucking ridiculous. Especially on, like, Facebook and Twitter and shite.
I honestly think that we should, like, when we start having conversations like this with other people, but we should begin the conversation with, are you open to the possibility that your opinion might be incorrect? And depending on that, you can go forward. Because if they're not, then there's literally no point in talking to them.
If the answer is no, then yeah, But the sad thing is, you will raise a reasonable objection to them, and they will act as if you are being the uncivil one. It literally happened to me a couple days ago. I think I started sending you messages regarding it, and then the guy blocked me before I could finish screenshotting shit.
Yeah.
But
the thing is, you don't even have to be hostile, just raising an objection.
But the guy in question, just for the viewers at home who weren't privy to our messages, the guy in question was all, if you have gay friends right now and you don't understand why they're afraid, you don't actually have gay friends, you know gay people. To which my response was a very simple, I'm gay and I am not afraid, nothing about this scares me. And the reeing and the gnashing of keyboards doth ensue therefrom. to the point that when I pointed out that Trump's record was literally not in any way anti-gay or anything, and that he had never made any inroads in any such thing, they looked at me like I was the insane one, and then before I could explain to them that I'm in favor of diversity with a lowercase d and not an uppercase d, they blocked me. Because I was trying to explain how you can be in favor of diversity, equality, etc., without being in favor of the ideologies that academia has tethered to that as a human shield, and that opinion was what got me blocked.
Yeah, I mean, my godfather is gay, and he survived the AIDS crisis and the army. He should not be afraid of anything anymore.
Yeah. just suddenly gay immortal shows up. Lol.
Story. The judge wants to know what happened with these flights that were headed to El Salvador, deporting what Trump claims are gang members and criminals. Now, the important thing to understand before we get into this debate is that Barack Obama was called the deporter-in-chief. The amount of individuals who were deported from this country without quote-unquote due process probably spans millions of people over the past several decades in our generation.
Just to stop the video real quick, I've been hearing this due process argument a lot, and I've been thinking about it today, and I've come to the conclusion that they waived their right to due process when they entered the country illegally. See, if they had entered legally, they would have had due process, but they willingly chose to forego their court, their right to a trial, and their right to due process by entering illegally of their own volition.
Oh,
So we should be able to send them back without due process.
and by the way, you don't extend full citizenship rights. This was another conversation I ended up getting into to people on temp visas or green cards. And therefore, yes, if they're associated with a terrorist organization or they actively support a terrorist organization, they should have their citizenship rights revoked. The difference is that I actually consider that a more lenient position because, frankly, anyone who is outright supporting terrorist organizations that have a provable and demonstrable and self-avowed history of violent revolution, they would be thrown in prison. So, in my opinion, it is actually more humane to simply boot them out from whence they came rather than throwing them in prison. Because as we all know, prison is a hard fucking situation to be in. So I would think that civilly and peacefully putting them back on whatever mode of conveyance they got to get here, or a better one, assuming they walked, would be the humanitarian position of, yes, you supported the literal end of Western civilization, but all we, the much superior culture of Western civilization, are going to do to you is send you back from whence you came, because clearly you have more allegiance to those values than you do to the values of the place you've adopted. So, yoink, your visa is revoked. Have a nice day.
Yeah, and about all these people who are going out of their mind trying to advocate for some of the worst criminals in the world to somehow remain in our country, which is insane. I honestly think that, all right, you want these people to stay here, fine. They can live at your house. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Have fun with the consequences.
Yeah, like it. But they're but they're third world and brown, you see, and therefore you have a moral imperative to care about them more than you care about your own countrymen. And this is the other thing: their cultural relativism is completely reversed or annulled entirely if and when it's their own next door neighbors rather than the third world brown people. And this frustrates me because the very same people who say you can't judge theocratic Muslims for being authoritarian theocrats will complain when their neighbor is even remotely publicly Christian or Jewish. And this doesn't hit their brains like contradiction alarm or anything. If you're okay with third world brown people being authoritarian theocrats in a way that we haven't seen in this corner of the world since the Middle Ages, then why in all the fucks are you not okay with your neighbor just, politely disagreeing with your spirituality or lack thereof? I am confused. Surely some of that cultural relativism would be very instrumental in, maintaining a unity of a culture that you're actually from, but apparently literally everyone except your next door neighbors are allowed to have lenience because we say so.
Yeah, like these people who were holding the signs, gays for Palestine. I will never fucking get over this. Like, they've been allowed to do, really weird and perverted shit in the middle of the street for years during the month of June, and they get the slightest bit of pushback and they freak the fuck out, but then they'll advocate for the Muslim world, which throws gay people off a fucking ruse.
Yeah, I am under no illusions. If I were in the Muslim world right now, it would be a race between 3 separate angry mobs to see who could lynch me first. One would be the anti-sorcery mob, the other would be the anti-gay mob, and the third would be they still think that disabilities are actually reflective of some kind of spiritual malady bullshit. So, yeah, 3 angry mobs. Would I be killed because I was gay, because I was an occultist, or because I was disabled? You make the call, but all 3 of them would at least want to kill me, and they might just, form a slightly larger mob with all 3 of them. And I'd like that not to be the case. I would like for the Muslim world to grow up out of the fucking Dark Ages. But until that happens, I am not going there, nor am I particularly offended by anyone in the Muslim world who decides to flee from the Muslim world to get here because they would rather live under Western values. But apparently, a large part of the worst part of the third world is being imported to Europe and sometimes also here because we just can't be culturally hegemonous enough, and therefore we have to allow for the third world brown people to follow the people fleeing the third world brown nations to here, and therefore making here almost a simulacrum of there. And we're not allowed to have any problems with this, or point out the contradiction, because fuck you, that's why.
One of the reasons why this is happening is because the stupid is being treated as if it was just as valid as the rational.
Yep. Excuse me for a second. The dog has been in my room for some reason for like the last 20 minutes, and I need to let him out because I don't even know what he's doing.
Oh, yeah. No problem. But, yeah, we'll play more of the video when Dalton gets back. But I've been honestly thinking that if these judges are overstepping their overreaching their judicial authority, I don't understand why they can't just be ignored. Like, if they don't actually have the power to do this, even though they're asserting themselves into these matters, then what's the problem with just ignoring? I know, like, Mariah Leftis will argue that Trump is defying a judge's orders, but like, if they don't actually have the authority to make him do these things, I don't see any problem with him ignoring them. It would mostly be an optics problem, but they already irrationally hate Trump anyway. So I don't believe that like that would change literally anything else.
And what's more, sanity willing, the next two administrations will be 8 years of Vance and hopefully somebody like Tulsi or Rand Paul. So what happens when all the other elderly people on the Supreme Court, for there are a fuck ton of them, wind up getting replaced with other right-wing judges? Suddenly, I think that judicial overreach would suddenly concern them again. But as usual, we have the moral high ground, and therefore we get to have more power than you because we say so. And none of your moral considerations will even register to us as arguments. Because reasons.
Yeah. But what do you think? Should Trump just ignore the judges orders regarding these decisions?
Unless they actually come up with an argument to actually substantiate their claims instead of, we have just decided because we say what the precedent is, derp. Like, there actually needs to be a legal rationale for this logic rather than we are the ones in the authority to make this claim and therefore we are making it.
Yeah. So there was one judge who wants to put a stop to Trump's ban on transgender people in the military. Now understand, like, you can believe you're transgender, but you can't go through any of the hormones or surgeries or anything. Like, say if you just think if you're a man who thinks you're a woman, you can still join the military as long as you don't like go through the hormones or go through the surgeries or anything.
I'm sorry, but the military thing was out of pocket already when they tried to change the standards for women getting in the military. That was wrong in the first place. So frankly, we should just put the standards back where they belong, and then anyone who can pass those incredibly high standards is all the more power to you. As long as we know you're actually capable of doing the job, I don't fucking care what gender you are or what sex you are or anything. Can you meet the standards? Fine. Here is a gun. There is the front line. Go nuts. But if you can't meet the standards, then I don't fucking care.
Well, there are that's why they say like you can believe it, but like as long as you don't go through the medical process, because there are medical reasons that would prohibit somebody from properly serving in the military.
Yeah,
But and the thing is, this judge like should have no authority regarding the military. Like the military has its own courts for a freaking reason.
I mean, and not to be a dick or anything, but he's called the commander in chief because he's supposed to, kind of be that.
Yeah. So, and here's like, if these judges can just interrupt the president's orders, and that means that he literally has no authority that a judge does not approve of, which is insane.
And again, I am reminded of Razorfist trying his damnedest to make this point decades ago. And yeah, as usual, cue Razorfist chair spin maneuver because he was right again. Damn. One of these times he'll be wrong, I swear, but it won't be anytime soon, it seems.
I'm gonna hit play again.
Yep.
Generation. I'd imagine millions. Democrats never complained about it before. Hillary Clinton said, deport the criminal aliens, no questions asked. The Supreme Court, I believe, I don't know if it was Supreme Court actually, but there's the court precedent on the Alien Enemies Act going back to 1948 is that there is no judicial review should the president declare alien enemies to be removed from this country. Makes sense. The reason why we have an executive branch is quite simple. The founding fathers, quite brilliant, said, let's figure out what form of government this country should be. Perhaps it should be a direct democracy where people elect representatives and those reps are for each area and the council comes together and convenes to represent those areas. So it's not so much a direct democracy, but largely the people vote. No, the problem there is you get a rule of the majority and then you'll have conflict when the minority refuses to abide by the majority. So how do we solve for that? That's a good point. Not to mention that committees can't answer warfare particularly well. Yikes. Well, that's not going to work. What if we had a council of elders, people that we appoint who are learned in matters of law, who could make these decisions in a much smaller group? Instead of states, you'd have appointed individuals by the state governments that would represent certain regions. Okay. Well, once again, you're going to have individuals over a long period of time with a set political view, unchanging, and it's not a bad idea, but still likely not strong enough to deal with things in the immediate. It could be a decent way to run things. I'm not sure. What if we had a king? Yeah, the problem with kings is how do you pass the power down? What just a president? You elect a president. Okay, I got an idea. All three. You get direct representation, you get a council of elders, and an executive. Why? The executive can handle military actions and executive action instantly. That means for the most pressing matters, if someone's attacking our shores, the president say, rally the troops, go. We don't got to wait for committees. We don't got to wait for hearings. When it comes to law enforcement, domestic or foreign, war, whatever, a president can act. The laws of this land will be determined by the people, and a council of elders will help keep it all in check. A Supreme Court, as it were. It's brilliant. So here we are today. The Alien Enemies Act as codified in law, which they're now entertaining as old law, 18th century law, as point.
Funny how that argument didn't seem to work with Roe versus Wade. How that sacred 50-year mark was so sacred that you couldn't dare touch it, apparently.
Yeah, and I mean, murder has been illegal since the beginning. That's old law. Should that be thrown out as well? Like, I'm sick of these freaking people. Like, they act like it's always if it's old, then it must stay because when it's in their favor. And then if it's old, then oh well, we can just throw it out or ignore it when it's not in their favor.
Yeah,
like, these
because
people have no.
Their entire rationale is based on moral abstraction, and therefore the rules they operate by can change depending on where the morality is alleged to be pointing. And surprise fucking surprise, these people think that they are the only people capable of being moral and that no one else is capable of having a moral opinion that disagrees with them. Wouldn't it be funny how that always seems to be how those dice always fall?
Yeah, look, and I'm always just so shocked how utterly arrogant these people are about their opinions on things that like not only are a bit up in the air, but things that they are provably wrong about. Like Jesus Christ, like are these people even living in the real fucking world?
I no, because again, and I've harped on this point so many times. They believe that the abstract is concrete and that the concrete is abstract, like irreversibly. And when you point out to them that they have no moral high ground, they have no moral authority, they have no moral legitimacy, they have no moral validity, they just call you whatsoever demoralizing thing they can call you and then exclude you from the discussion. And they've done this so many times that, again, to reference Nux's math, they take the 20 side, they take the 20% position on every 80-20 rule or every 80-20 issue. And they wonder why the 80% is looking at that 20% like, guys, are you okay? You consistently seem to be getting it unarguably wrong every time. What the fuck? It's actually harder to get everything wrong all the time than it is to get everything right all the time. Like, it's statistically harder to get the diametrically opposed wrong answer, but they somehow manage to do it every time.
Here's the thing: even when they happen to get into power and they're able to vote in the policies that they want, when these policies inevitably end up bad, because the vast majority of them do, even when the bad results of the policies that they advocated for are staring them right in the face and people are suffering the consequences, they still would not admit that they are wrong.
But you see, real my positionism has never been tried before, says every utopian numbskull in the history of the planet, and the rivers of blood flow therefrom every single fucking time, especially when those ideologies are rooted in Hegelian dichotomies. I've said it once and I will say it 1,000 more times. Everything that Hegel or Neo-Hegelianism touches results in a bloodbath every single fucking time. Every single one. Never Hegel, not even once.
Yeah, I've tried to do thought experiments and I've tried to, change my way of thinking, shift my shift my thought process to try and see things from your perspective to basically get into their mindset and try and see the world the way they do to maybe try and understand, and I cannot do it. It's just too freaking illogical. It makes no damn sense.
Yeah, I come from a philosophy background, and my main objections to what used to be referred to as social justice and is now referred to as woke and applies to many other things as well that are broadly grouped under Frankfurt School critical theory crap. I come from that kind of background, and even I sometimes just have to throw up my hands, because you would think by sheer law of averages, someone somewhere would be able to go, wait, guys, everyone around us is deliberately fucking us over just to prove that we're wrong. Is it possible that we're wrong? Like, ever? Are we ever even potentially likely to maybe someday be the baddies? And apparently they have concluded no, because anyone who would point out that they might be trending toward the territory of the baddies is themselves bad and therefore not admissible to the discussion every time.
But did you see what happened with the plane order?
No. What happened there?
There was a plane full of illegal migrants, and a judge ordered the plane to be turned around because it was headed to Bukele in El Salvador, because Trump was made a deal with him that they were going to pay El Salvador to hold the most dangerous illegal migrants, and the plane was already in the air. So Trump and Bukele said, "Just well, too late," and they sent all the criminal migrants to El Salvador in their anti-terrorist prison, which has never been escaped from. It is it's honestly one of the most brutal prisons I could ever think of. And considering these people are the literally
they're
mankind,
they're
I feel no
they're one step away from rabid animals. Let's be real here. They are the kind of humans who resemble demons more than demons do.
Yeah. Not only that, but Trump paid Bukele $6 million for this deal, and people are playing like, "Oh, you're paying millions of dollars to now house these migrants overseas." But what they don't realize is that it would have taken us 12 million a year in order to house them. And
Yep.
so we pay half of what it would have taken previously, and El Salvador, which is quickly becoming a very good ally, gets a bunch of money for in a big boost to their economy. So it's a win-win for everybody except the bad guys.
Can we just create like a international council to like counterbalance the EU that's like Trump, Rupert Lowe, Bukele, and Malay, and what's the other guy's name? Is it Gert Wilders? No, that's not the guy I'm thinking of. The guy from Hungary, the old guy, but that's really ridiculously based. Um,
Urban?
Thank you. Yeah. Can we just get a like counter EU going? Because at this point there are enough based politicians and politician adjacent people that we could literally like make our own like counter to the EU, and it would be 1,000 times better because they're all varying degrees of populists and libertarians.
Poland is based as well. Maybe we could convince them to leave the EU and then join this new council.
Yes. And that way at least there's a like counter institution which should make Dev happy when the gerontocracy and the EU and the like multicultural internationalist order fucking crumbles, as it must for sanity to be maintained.
Yes. So, like, there's this judge that I believe I forget who he was appointed by. He was appointed by either Obama or Biden, and he's trying to force Elon Musk to reinstate U.S. aid. But here's the thing, though: like the Trump administration and Musk has said that Doge does not have any actual power to, tear down a
Yeah,
federal
Doge
agency.
is an
It makes
advisory body. He reports his findings and his group's findings to Trump, and then it is Trump's call or someone very close to Trump's call as to whether those findings will shape policy. But usually, Elon is good at his job, and therefore those recommendations wind up being carried out because Trump and Elon are very much thick as thieves. And my
yeah,
God, does that make everybody upset that Trump and Musk are that much bros, to the point that I've seen people like David Pakman trying their damnedest to fabricate some beef between them, and every time the beefs that get fabricated are brought up to either Trump or Musk, they just kind of laugh and continue to laugh in bro, as it were.
yeah. So, with this order, because we know that Doge doesn't have any actual power to uh, tear down an agency, that means it also doesn't have any power to restore an agency. So this order is basically meaningless.
It's basically we are signing this petition to show how much we morally disapprove of you. And I would say I hate to point this out, but I in fact love to point this out. When is it going to occur to any of you normative institutional fucks that you have no moral legitimacy, you have no moral high ground, you have no moral validity, and none of your moral grandstanding or abstraction is tied to anything? The
Yeah,
second you realize you no longer have the moral high ground, you might start to finally dig yourself out of the fucking ostrich hole you put yourselves in. But until you fucking realize that you are not the ones with the moral high ground anymore, you will continue to double down in increasingly embarrassing ways.
yes. I don't mind institutions when they are behaving in the way that they were
When they're
meant to.
functioning,
Yes,
when they're
when they're
actually
actually doing their
serving
job.
the thing they're supposed to serve rather than authoritating over things.
Yeah, but when it's just purely partisan, overreaching bullshit like these federal judges are doing, I honestly say just fucking ignore them. Just fucking ignore them. It'd be literally better for everyone if you just ignored them, Trump.
I mean, not for nothing, but the approval ratings of the current administration are higher than they have been for my entire life. Full stop. I am almost 30, and I literally cannot bring to mind any politician who has done their job more effectively or more succinctly and efficiently than the current administration has. Which should, in and of itself, be quite the scandal, because it means that literally every politician since my life began has been a completely ineffectual wet flake and has gone out of their way to not do any of the things they promised, ever. That's why Trump is getting such high approval, because the idea of a politician who is doing the things he promised to do in an expedient time frame and efficiently so is so rare that literally everyone who's looking at it cannot believe it is happening, because it has not happened in at least 30 years.
Yeah. And I've seen a lot of these people whine and complain about Trump working with Bukele in this prison deal, because in El Salvador, a lot of the prisoners are put to work in order to, produce value for the economy of the country, and then they're going to say, "Oh, he's literally selling people into slavery. It's so horrible." Meanwhile,
No, they
people,
volunteered for the slavery by being criminal assets.
not only that, but like people in United States prisons are already made to work odd jobs. Not all of them, but in some prisons, like work is freaking mandatory. And not only that, but Bukele isn't the president of you whiny pathetic fucks. He's the president of El Salvador, and his approval ratings are in the freaking 90s. Like any
Because
politician in the United States would literally kill for those approval ratings.
because again, it is so rare in basically the entire Western world for politicians to do even the minorest fraction of things that they are supposed to be doing or that they got elected on, that literally everyone who sees someone actually doing it goes, "Holy fucking shit, I didn't realize it was possible for a politician to actually do their fucking job this much. What the actual hell?" And more importantly, why have we been settling for so much non-work for the last 50 years at least?
Yeah, I mean, there are people who returned to El Salvador after this guy got into office and started cleaning things up, who said that they felt more safe in El Salvador than they do here in America. And considering the state of some of our cities, I cannot blame them at all.
Cue the narrator, and they were not wrong for the time being. Although I will point out that we are 1 day shy of 3 months into Trump's second term with his actual efficient and subservient cabinet. So who knows what will happen in the next year and 3 years and 9 months or so.
Yeah.
And but let's not forget that his vice president is in his 40s and looks like he's in his 20s. So even if even if Trump is restricted to the next 4 years, there's nothing stopping JD Vance from getting in and going, "Let's continue doing this again until good things stop happening." And then maybe like Tulsi or Rand Paul will get in after him and go, "Let's keep doing the thing that makes sense and works, because why the fuck would we?"
Yeah, and honestly, thinking about it, the scale of government is so large that I honestly don't believe that the time that Trump has allotted Elon Musk for Doge will be enough. I feel like if Vance gets in, he's going to have to do another Doge because it's the scale is too much.
And who knows how many times during those 4 years Trump will extend the order, because not for nothing, but at least a large part of what the Trump administration is getting positive press for is explicitly at the hands of Elon and Doge. That's one of the reasons I think it's so easy for them to be bros, because they both know that as long as they stay tied to each other's crests and keep doing what they're doing, the sky is very much the limit. And with Elon, his Nikola Tesla fanboyism, it might not even be the limit. It might be we might be sitting here 4 years from now going, "Well, the Martian colony is going surprisingly well."
Speaking about Elon Musk, just a small tangent. I saw clips of these late night comedic fuckheads who were celebrating that Tesla's stock was dropping, and like it's just so disgusting because it's not dropping because Tesla is a failing company. It's dropping because it's under tariffs.
People are afraid to
Fucking
own them
assholes.
because their cars get firebombed and shite.
Yeah,
Just
by the people that watch you and who cheer you on, you fucking lunatics.
yeah, it's literally like them taking a victory lap. Never mind that they literally had to car bomb people en masse to even get this minor Pyrrhic victory. And never mind that people are blaming the people who are responsible for it mostly, which means that they're not disapproving of Elon. They're just too afraid to buy cars from Elon because they know that they're within a decent chance of getting car bombed for it. And yet,
Yeah,
and yet, that and yet they are the ones calling Trump and Elon fascists. You know, that group of people who wants to shrink the bureaucratic scope of the government using an extra governmental agency and give people more freedom from the government. Literally the opposite of the definition of fascism, but whatever. Churchill was 100%. He was fucking 500% right. The fascists of the future are currently calling themselves anti-fascists as they're doing it.
yeah, and like, should we call Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert terrorist supporters at this point? Domestic terrorist supporters.
I mean, they already did it during the BLM protests and the Chaz and the Antifa riots and everything. Remember Jimmy Kimmel's famous "the president hasn't called out Nazis enough" bit, even though Trump had already done it by the time he said that, and he did it 2 more times after.
Yeah. Good. Good. Do we had both hoped that after the election that these people would regain their fucking sanity. Like, obviously, that was a fool's hope
Yeah,
because
no,
these.
they're doubling down and doubling down and doubling. The only silver lining here is I expected there to be a lot more cities on fire, and there haven't been quite so many of those. That
Well,
does,
they've
that
been
does surprise
focusing
me.
on blowing up cars.
I was expecting a Chaz for every major city after election night. So I am a bit surprised there haven't been as many Antifa mobs as there probably
Well,
realistically could
I
have
gotta
been.
tell them, if Teslas were more widespread, there would be.
Point taken.
But yeah, like honestly, this does give me hope for the midterms, though, because usually, whenever it's the midterms, the person who's a party that has the presidency loses a bit of ground. But with these people literally devolving into fucking terrorism, I don't foresee a problem with the midterm
And
elections.
the other thing is, the party in power tends to lose ground because everybody fucking knows they don't do their fucking jobs. And it's been the norm for the last 30 to 50 years that politicians just en masse don't do their jobs. But we're 3 months in, and even after month one, Trump had already done more of his job in that 1 month than every other politician working in government combined that wasn't a part of that administration.
Not only that, but Doge uncovering a lot of the wasteful spending is really pissing people off, as it should. And so when the Democratic Party takes the position of defending and trying to maintain that bullshit wasteful spending, they're not helping themselves.
Yeah,
I think I saw a poll.
it's also
I saw a
making
poll here
people very
today.
it's also making people very happy to see that corruption go away at the behest of Trump and Doge. So, which might explain why there is a 70+% approval rating and a 29% disapproval rating the last I looked at it.
I believe the Democrats' approval ratings are also somewhere in the 20% range, which is insane.
And yet they keep doubling down because they think they are the arbiters of morality.
Yeah,
Guys, it's not the 90s anymore. And what's more, you guys are no longer the party of freedom and liberty. You used to be when it was the authoritarian tradcons banning rock music and D&D and every other fucking thing in the universe and the Red Scare and the Satanic Panic and shit. But we are now long past the period where you have already done equivalent moral panics. There's the trans kid moral panic, which is literally resulting in genital mutilation en masse for an entire generation of people. And there was the Me Too hysteria that literally makes heterosexual men afraid to look at heterosexual women for more than 2 seconds. So
Yeah,
you guys are currently where the tradcon evangelicals were in the 90s. And
I would honestly say that it's worse because here's the thing: they not only are they're complaining about those media, but they're also getting into these companies and altering them to the point where they're not even fucking fun anymore.
well, there's also the point that when the tradcons were in charge, Hollywood and all of the entertainment media opposed them. Whereas now, because it is the left wing that is being the moralistic authoritarian ones, Hollywood and all the entertainment media are unfortunately on side. I honestly think there does need to be a balance of the two for society to function, which means that for the foreseeable future, until the right wing starts going on their authoritarian spiel again, we can't rely on Hollywood to meaningfully oppose authoritarianism, because the authoritarianism in question is with their moral permission now.
Because like even when you had like the far right bitching during the '90s, you could still ignore them and play your games and listen to your music and play D&D.
And read
There's
comic
no
books
escape.
and all the rest of it. Yeah,
Yeah, there's no escaping these people now, though.
yeah, because everything that brings people joy must be deprogrammed of meritocracy, because meritocracy is a harmful delusion we have to wake people up from. Don't ya know? And all the
Yeah,
while, they don't realize that as a result of being literally anti-meritocracy, they are ruining everything they touch with like moral glee as they do so.
yeah, and then when these companies close down, and fans cheer because the thing that they love got ruined, and now the people that ruined it are out of a job. They act all shocked and offended about how could you cheer the people losing their jobs because you destroyed the thing with your own actions.
Yeah, in the same way, the old school evangelical tradcon type said, "How can you possibly be so immoral as to cheer when we lose? It's because you deserved to." And now the shoe is very much on the other foot. The libertarian part of the right wing is the one in ascendancy. The libertarian populist part of the right wing is the one in ascendancy, and it's the left being moralistic and authoritarian and censorious and anti-meritocracy. And so, as that shift changed, as the teams went up perpendicular to each other, now it's the left being moralistic and authoritarian, so we cheer when the left loses, and the right being in favor of populism and libertarianism, so we cheer when the right broadly wins. That doesn't mean there aren't occasional morons like Matt Walsh or Gavin McInnes going, "We should also censor all the fun shit because morality." But as you will notice, when Matt Walsh or Gavin McInnes says some stupid shit like that, their own audience bitch slaps them into oblivion until they recant. So as long as that remained in place, we should be mostly fine.
Yeah, but do you so like I've heard a lot of people calling for the impeachment of these judges, which is going to be difficult because while Trump and his people have the lead in Congress and the Senate, they don't have enough of a majority to make this a painless process. And since we know that the Democrats would rather die than agree with Trump on literally anything, it's going to be very difficult to get these judges removed, which is why I vote for just fucking ignoring them.
Well, and that's why I think the midterms this particular time are going to be really interesting, because the usual like party switch that happens because the government is incompetent. But for the last 3 months, give or take a day, it hasn't been incompetent. It's actually been doing what it promised to do and doing so in as public and efficient a way as possible. So it's not impossible that rather than having the party switch like usually happens during midterms, the party in power might be able to double down rather than be hamstrung by a party switch.
Yeah, they should double down. Like, this is one of the few times where politicians can say, "I am actively trying to fulfill my promises to you," and it's literally these people who are trying to extract me, and they tell you that they're trying to extract me, and they run on trying to extract me.
And I mean, for the love of God, look again at the record approval polls, and those record approval polls are occurring all the while. Every institution in the mainstream media and the government keep saying he's a fascist, he's terrible, he's Hitler, he's this, he's that. Like, they have thrown every moral word at him, short of literally just calling him a demon, and all the while his approval rating continues to go up and up and up. If that isn't a clear sign of who has the whip hand here, I don't know what will be.
And I've seen a lot of people like just quit the Democrat Party over the things that they've been doing lately because again they're opposing objectively good things. And I got to say, well, the previous election results regarding the black community didn't go as well as I'd hoped. Still, Trump won 20% of black men, which is 1 in 5, which isn't a whole lot, but it gives me hope.
How much do you think him being as publicly and openly based as possible is going to increase that lead, though? That's the thing. The party switch is always dependent on the government being useless, normative, and incompetent. Just, business as usual. And the last 3 months have been the least business as usual politician reign that I've ever seen. So it might actually invert the party switch that usually happens. We might get a bigger chunk of the lead this time. And I as a left winger myself, policy wise, I want there to be a meaningful two-party system at least. But there are maybe 5 sane people who used to run as Democrats, and most of those run either as Republicans now, like Tulsi, or as third party, like Cornel West and so forth. So, all of the people that I can tolerate are currently in the right wing camp. What am I supposed to do? You could solve this by saying that populism good, doing what people want is good, and that obstructing the people's own will is bad, but these people function on the premise that populism bad and normative institutionalism good, especially when it's morality. So, until and unless they come to the position of, okay, we fucked up, we need to stop being anti-populist, they're going to keep being anti-populist, and it's going to keep giving the fucking W's to their opposition. So run someone I can vote for, please, who is also a left-wing populist and a left-wing libertarian, or get the fuck out of the way, because I'm sick of having to hope that someday one person within the Democratic Party might get sane enough to vote for again. Because I'm out of options here. There is no meaningful left-wing alternative if the only left-wing alternative you have says normative institutions and fuck populism.
Yeah. But, with these terrorist attacks going on, I honestly worry because they're not just targeting vehicles. People have been out there, getting harassed, and they've threatened, Elon's life, and obviously they tried to shoot Trump during the election. So I am honestly concerned that while these car bombings are obviously horrible, I feel like it's only going to get worse from here. Like sanity will not return to these people, I think, for a very long time.
As much as I approve how much has been done in only 3 months, I will remind everyone that it's only been 3 months, which means there's a likelihood of 3 years and 9 months left still to go. And if Vance gets elected after that, and Tulsi or Rand Paul after that, this ain't gonna break anytime soon. It's going to get darker before it gets lighter. The good news is our enemies are incompetent and never seem to be able to learn from their failures. So it'll at least be amusing, while it's also somewhat scary.
Yeah, well, I'm not too concerned about Vance because there was a poll recently, and in terms of favorability for Democrat leadership, AOC was in the head, and Vance versus AOC is going to be a fucking slaughter.
I mean, if you want to continue just giving your enemies the W's, you can do, like, again, as a left-winger myself, I want there to be a meaningful, populist, libertarian, left-wing party. And I would like it to be in the vein of the Nordic model. But, like, all of the sane people in the Democrats have either flipped to the Republicans like Tulsi did, or they're starting to run third party. What do you want me to do with it? Like, either you need to do whatever needs to be done to get the sane Democrats back in the Democratic Party, or you just need to hunker down and get used to losing for the next 12 years or so, because 4 more years of Trump, 8 years of Vance, and actually more than that. It might be 20 years, because I could easily see the remaining 4 years of Trump, then 4 or 8 years of Vance, and then 8 years of Tulsi or Rand Paul after that.
Yeah. So
either get used to losing until 2044, or maybe you could consider the idea that you aren't the arbiters of what's important or moral or valid, and you need to stop alienating the populace, goddammit.
I'd settle for the first step being just admitting there's a chance you might be wrong. That'd be a very important first step.
Right, but it's not going to be enough. That's why I'm saying, unless and until they realize just how much they have been the bad guys, which, by the way, does, for me at least, include an admitting that Gamergate wasn't a bad thing after all, and neither was Comicsgate, neither was the Phantom Menace, and neither was any of the other cultural war stuff. Until you can get at least that far, the future looks very red from now until 2044. Assuming the Republicans don't shoot themselves in the foot by trying to run someone who's not in the populist libertarian wing. Please, for the love of God, Republicans, do not shoot yourselves in the foot here. It's a very clear shot from Trump to Vance, and then from Vance to either Tulsi or Rand Paul, or maybe Vivek Ramaswamy. Like, any of those combinations of things will result in you winning until at least 2044. If you try to fuck off and make the neocons or the tradcons happy again, then you're going to literally snatch defeat from the open jaws of victory that could have given you a 20-year lead.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. The neocons are virtually dead.
Mercifully. Let's hope they stay that way. No institutional necromancy.
All right, everybody, I have been Mystery.
I've been Dalton Mortimer, the Authenticator, and we have been the Duality of Man. Cheers, guys.
Goodbye, everybody.